The great hall of the Galactic Council was silent. Hyemi stood before the assembled representatives of 40 different species, her forearms folded in the traditional position of royal acceptance. Her violet skin seemed to glow under the chamber's lights, and her golden eyes remained fixed on the document before her. This was the day she would marry a human. She had never met a human before 3 months ago. Her people, the Valkyrie, had been fighting with the human colony worlds over border territories for 3 years. Ships had been destroyed. Colonies had been threatened. War seemed inevitable. And war would cost millions of lives. Then the humans proposed something unexpected. A marriage. A union between their military and her royal family. A bond that would make war unthinkable. Hyemi had agreed immediately. She was the eldest daughter of Empress Nalara, and duty was the first lesson she had learned. If her marriage could save lives, then she would marry. It did not matter that she had never loved anyone. It did not matter that she knew nothing about humans except that they were traders and diplomats, known throughout the galaxy for their patience and their preference for peaceful solutions. The humans stood beside her now. Captain Doyun, of the Terran Defense Corps. He was tall for his species, with dark hair and eyes that seemed kind. His face carried scars, thin lines that marked his jaw and forehead. When she had asked about them during their first meeting, he had simply said they were from an accident long ago. He wore a formal uniform, dark blue with silver buttons. No weapons. No armor. Just cloth and metal. Simple and plain. The Valkyrie warriors in the hall wore battle gear even to ceremonies, but the humans seemed to believe that showing strength meant hiding it. "Do you, Princess Hyemi of the Valkyrie Empire, accept this union?" the council speaker asked. His voice echoed through the massive chamber. "I accept," Hyemi said. Her voice was steady. She had practiced this moment 1,000 times. "Do you, Captain Doyun of the Terran Defense Corps, accept this union?" "I accept," Doyun said quietly. His accent was strange, the words shaped differently than the common tongue she was used to. But his tone was gentle, almost sad. The speaker raised his 6 arms. "Then by the authority of the Galactic Council, you are bound. May this union bring peace to both your peoples." The hall erupted in ceremonial sounds. The Valkyrie struck their chest plates in approval. The insectoid trill clicked their mandibles. The gaseous lumens pulsed with light. And the small delegation of humans simply clapped their hands together, the soft sound almost lost in the noise. Hyemi turned to look at her new husband. He was looking at her too, and for just a moment, she thought she saw something in his eyes, something old and tired. But then he smiled, small and polite, and offered his hand. She placed one of her 4 hands in his 2-fingered grip. His skin was warm, strange, but not unpleasant. "Hello, wife," he said. "Hello, husband," she replied. The reception lasted for hours. Representatives from every major species came to offer their congratulations and their hopes for peace. Hyemi stood beside Doyun and accepted each greeting with grace. He remained quiet for most of it, speaking only when directly addressed, always polite but never warm. Her sister Sora found her during a brief moment of privacy. Sora was younger by 5 years, and where Hyemi had been trained in strategy and diplomacy, Sora had been trained in intelligence and secrets. "You look beautiful," Sora said, adjusting the ceremonial cape that draped across Hyemi's shoulders. "Thank you," Hyemi said. Though beauty matters little in political marriages, Sora glanced toward where Doyun stood, speaking with a Trill ambassador. "What do you think of him? He seems gentle," Hyemi said carefully. "The humans sent a diplomat, not a warrior. That is good. It means they truly want peace." Sora's expression shifted slightly. "I have been reading about humans," she said quietly. "Their public records are very detailed. Almost too detailed." "What do you mean?" "I mean that their history is very carefully presented. They joined the galactic community only 80 years ago. Before that, their records become unclear." Sora leaned closer. "Sister, be careful. Humans are stranger than they appear. Before Hemi could respond, Doyun returned to her side. Sora smiled and excused herself, leaving them alone in the crowded hall. Your sister does not trust me, Doyun said. It was not a question. Hemi considered lying, but decided against it. She is cautious by nature. She is cautious. That is wise, Doyun said. Trust should be earned, not given. They stood together in silence for a moment. Around them, the celebration continued. Music played, strange melodies from a dozen different worlds mixing into something chaotic but oddly beautiful. I know this is not what you wanted, Doyun said finally. A marriage to a stranger. For politics. It is my duty, Hemi replied. And duty is enough. Is it? He looked at her. And again she saw that tired sadness in his eyes. I hope so. For both our sakes. 3 days later, they left for Sanctuary 7, a neutral station that would serve as their home. It was a diplomatic outpost, positioned between Velkari and human space. The station was large, capable of housing 10,000 residents, and it served as a hub for trade and negotiation between dozens of species. Their quarters were in the central tower, spacious and decorated in a blend of human and Velkari styles. Separate bedrooms, a shared living space, and a large window that looked out into the stars. Hemi had expected awkwardness. She had expected discomfort. But Doyun was respectful and kept his distance. He worked during the day, attending meetings and coordinating trade agreements. She did the same, maintaining her responsibilities to the Velkari government through quantum communications. In the evenings, they would share meals. He would ask about her work, and she would ask about his. The conversations were polite, safe. Neither of them spoke about anything personal. But sometimes, late at night, Hemi would wake and find the apartment empty. She would search and find Doyun in the station's observation deck, staring out at the stars. He never noticed her, watching. His expression during those moments was different from the gentle diplomat she saw during the day. He looked haunted, as though he was remembering something painful. She never approached him during those times. Some pain was too private to share, especially between strangers who happened to be married. 3 months passed this way. Quiet, peaceful. The border disputes between their peoples faded. Trade increased. The marriage was working exactly as intended. Hemi found herself growing comfortable with the arrangement. Doyun was kind, if distant. He read poetry in the evenings. Strange human words about love and loss. He never raised his voice. He never made demands. He was, in every way, exactly what she had expected from a human. And then, on a quiet morning while they shared breakfast, the alarms began to scream. Hemi's communication device activated immediately. Her mother's face appeared, and the Empress looked afraid. Hemi had never seen her mother look afraid. Hemi, the Empress said, return home immediately. We are under attack. By the humans? Hemi stood, her heart racing. No, her mother said. By something worse. The Kravaks have entered our space. They are destroying everything. The transmission ended. Hemi turned to Doyun. He had stood as well, and his expression had changed. The gentleness was gone. His eyes were hard, focused. He looked like a different person. The Kravaks? He said quietly. You know of them? Everyone knows of them, Doyun said. He walked to the window and stared out at the stars. His hands, which had always been steady and calm, were now clenched into fists. This changes everything, he whispered. Hemi did not understand what he meant. Not yet. But she would soon learn that the gentle diplomat she had married was not the man standing before her now. The war had begun, and with it, she would discover the truth about humans. The journey back to Velkara took 2 days through slipspace. Hemi spent most of that time in communication with the War Council, receiving updates that grew worse by the hour. 3 outer colonies had gone silent. The 4th was sending distress signals that cut off mid-transmission. The Kravaks were not slowing down. Doyun sat beside her during these calls, listening but saying nothing. He had requested permission to observe the council meetings, and Hiemi had agreed. He was her husband now, and this war would affect his people as well. But something about him had changed since that morning. He no longer seemed gentle or distant. He watched the tactical displays with intense focus, his eyes tracking every ship movement, every defensive position. Once, she caught him drawing diagrams on a data pad, complex patterns she did not recognize. "What are those?" she asked during a break between calls. He looked up, almost surprised to see her watching him. "Attack formations," he said. "The Kravaks use swarm tactics, but there are patterns in chaos. Weaknesses. You have studied them?" "I have studied war," he said simply, then returned to his drawings. The answer unsettled her, but she did not press further. There was no time. When they arrived at Velkara, the homeworld was preparing for siege. Orbital defense platforms were being activated. The fleet was assembling in formation. Millions of civilians were being evacuated from the outer cities to underground shelters. Haimi's mother met them at the royal landing pad. Empress Nalara looked older than Haimi remembered, the weight of command showing in the set of her shoulders. "Daughter," the Empress said, embracing Hiemi with all 4 arms, "I am glad you are safe." "And what is the current situation?" Hiemi asked. "Come." The War Council meets now. The council chamber was filled with the Empire's greatest military minds. Fleet Marshal Taehyung stood at the center, a massive Velkari warrior with scars covering his arms. Around him were admirals, generals, and strategic advisors. Hiemi took her place at the council table. Doyun stood behind her, as was proper for a consort. Several of the generals glanced at him with curiosity, but most ignored the human completely. "The Kravaks have taken 7 colonies," Taehyung began, his voice deep and commanding. "Their fleet numbers in the thousands. Our scouts estimate 12,000 ships, possibly more. They move faster than we anticipated." A holographic display appeared above the table, showing the Kravaks' advance. It looked like a red stain, spreading across the map of Velkari space. "What attempts have been made at communication?" one admiral asked. "All channels have been tried," Taehyung said. "They respond only with attacks. This is not a war of territory. This is extinction." The word hung in the air like poison. Extinction. The Kravaks did not conquer. They consumed. 17 civilizations had fallen to them over the past 1,000 years, and those species no longer existed. "What are our defensive capabilities?" Hiemi asked. "We have 300 ships of the line," Taehyung said. "Another 500 smaller vessels. Our ground forces number in the millions. The orbital platforms can hold against a sustained assault for perhaps 10 days. And the Kravaks' numbers? As I said, 12,000 ships. Perhaps more. 10. The numbers were impossible. Even with every advantage, the Velkari could not win this war. Everyone in the room knew it. The question was not how to win, but how long they could survive. "The humans," someone said. "What of their fleet?" All eyes turned to Doyun. He remained standing quietly, his expression neutral. "The human fleet is small," Taehyung said dismissively. 12 ships arrived in system yesterday. They are in orbit now, awaiting orders. 12 ships, an admiral laughed bitterly. Against 12,000. The humans might as well have sent flowers. Several others joined the laughter. A desperate sound that spoke of fear more than humor. Haimi felt embarrassment for her husband, but when she glanced back at him, his expression had not changed. "Perhaps Captain Doyun has insights to offer," Hiemi said, her voice cutting through the laughter. "He has been studying the Kravaks' movements." Taehyung raised an eyebrow. "Very well. Speak, human." Doyun stepped forward to the table. He moved with careful precision, like every step was measured. May I access the tactical display? Taehyung steward. Permission. Do-yoon interfaced his data pad with the holographic system. The display changed, showing the Kravak's attack patterns from the past 3 days. He manipulated the image with swift movements, highlighting specific formations. The Kravaks appear chaotic, Do-yoon said, his voice steady and calm. But they are not. They use a distributed intelligence system. Like insects, each cluster of ships operates semi-independently, but they coordinate through bio-electromagnetic signals. He highlighted 3 different attack waves. Here, here, and here. The vanguard always attacks from multiple vectors, but the primary force follows a predictable pattern. They probe defenses, identify weak points, then concentrate force. The room had gone quiet. Every eye was on the human and his analysis. They have a weakness, Do-yoon continued. The bioelectromagnetic signals can be disrupted. Localized field generators would break their coordination. Separated clusters become confused. They can be destroyed individually. We do not have such technology, Taehyung said. But his tone was no longer dismissive. It was thoughtful. Humans do, Do-yoon said. We have been developing electromagnetic warfare systems for 70 years. 70 years. Jaime did the calculation quickly. That was before humanity joined the Galactic Council. What had they been fighting that required such weapons? How effective are these systems? Her mother asked. Against the Kravaks? Do-yoon manipulated the display again, showing simulated battle scenarios. Properly deployed, they could reduce their effectiveness by 40%. Perhaps more. 40% still leaves them with overwhelming numbers, an admiral pointed out. Yes, Do-yoon agreed. But it gives you time. Time to evacuate. Time to prepare better defenses. Time to survive. Taehyung studied the human for a long moment. Do-yoon met the fleet marshal's gaze without flinching. We have fought, he said quietly. We simply prefer not to. The answer was strange, but something in his tone made it impossible to dismiss. Jaime found herself wondering again about the gaps in human history. The careful way their records were presented. Very well, the Empress said. Captain Do-yoon, we accept your analysis and your offer of assistance. You will work with Fleet Marshal Taehyung to implement these electromagnetic systems. With respect, Empress, Taehyung said. I suggest we give the human command of a sector, the Terex Nebula. It is furthest from the homeworld and least likely to hold. If his tactics work, we will know. If they fail, we lose nothing critical. It was an insult, and everyone knew it. They were sending the human to the sector they expected to fall first. A test, or perhaps a way to be rid of him, but Do-yoon simply nodded. I will accompany him, Jaime said immediately. Her mother turned to her. Daughter, that is not necessary. He is my husband, Jaime said. Our union was meant to bind our peoples. I will not abandon that purpose now. The Empress looked between Jaime and Do-yoon, then nodded slowly. Very well, but take care, both of you. The Terex sector will face the storm first. After the council adjourned, Jaime found Do-yoon alone in a corridor, staring out a window at the fleet assembling above. She approached quietly. You did not have to defend yourself to them, she said. I know, he replied. But they needed to hear something that made sense. Fear makes people desperate for hope, even small hope. Do you believe we can win? He was silent for a long moment. I believe we can survive, he said finally. Survival is sometimes the only victory that matters. You sound like a soldier. I was a soldier, Do-yoon said. Before I became a diplomat, before this marriage, I was many things I wish I could forget. Jaime wanted to ask more, but something in his expression stopped her. There was pain there, old and deep. Whatever he had been, whatever he had done, It haunted him still. That night, as she lay in her temporary quarters, Hemi accessed the restricted files on human history. Sora's words echoed in her mind. Humans are stranger than they appear. The files were heavily encrypted, but Hemi had royal access codes. She dug deeper than public records, searching for the gaps, the missing years. What she found made her blood run cold. Before humans joined the Galactic Council, they had been alone, isolated on their single world and a few colony planets. And they had been at war, not with aliens, with themselves. The human civil war had lasted 70 years. 70 years of their own kind fighting each other with weapons that made the Valkyrie's military technology look primitive. Kinetic weapons that could crack planets. Biological agents that could sterilize continents. Ships designed not for exploration, but for pure destruction. 2 billion humans had died before the war finally ended. And when it was over, when the survivors finally achieved peace, they had made a choice. They would hide what they were capable of. They would join the galaxy as traitors and diplomats. They would never speak of the weapons they had built or the horrors they had created. They would be known for peace because they understood the cost of war better than any species alive. Hemi closed the files, her hands shaking. She thought of Doyun, gentle and kind, reading poetry in the evenings, and she thought of the man she had seen in the council chamber, analyzing battle patterns with cold precision. Which one was real? Or were they both real, somehow existing in the same person? Outside her window, the human fleet hung in orbit. 12 ships, small and insignificant against the thousands coming. But maybe, Hemi thought, numbers did not tell the whole story. Maybe humans had been preparing for this war for 70 years, and maybe the galaxy was about to learn what happened when you forced peaceful people to fight. The TNS Indomitable was not what Hemi had expected. From the outside, it looked like the other human ships. Sleek, efficient, unimpressive. But when she boarded with Doyun, she felt the difference immediately. The corridors hummed with controlled energy. Every crew member moved with purpose. No wasted motion. No casual conversation. They wore uniforms that were dark and practical. And many carried weapons openly. Not ceremonial blades or decorative arms, but real weapons designed for killing. "Welcome aboard, Captain," said a woman who met them at the airlock. She was short with close-cropped hair and eyes that seemed to see everything. "Commander Minji. I run the Indomitable when you're not here." "Commander," Doyun said, and his voice had changed again. It was harder now, clipped. "Status report. All systems operational. Crew at battle stations. The electromagnetic field generators are deployed in the nebula as you ordered. We're ready." "Good. Show Princess Hemi to the observation deck. I need to brief the tactical team." Minji nodded and gestured for Hemi to follow. As they walked through the ship, Hemi noticed how the crew looked at Doyun. There was respect there, but also something else. Recognition. These humans knew him in a way that went beyond rank. "How long have you served with my husband?" Hemi asked. 7 years, Minji said. "Since before the peace. Before he became a diplomat." "What was he before?" Minji glanced at her, and something shifted in her expression. "He was what we needed him to be. What we all were. During the Civil War. We did terrible things so our children wouldn't have to." They reached the observation deck, a circular room with transparent walls showing the Terex Nebula spread out before them. The nebula was beautiful. Clouds of gas and dust glowing in shades of purple and blue. It was also the perfect place for an ambush. Hemi spent the next hours watching the crew prepare. She accessed the ship's systems with Minji's permission and studied the battle plans Doyun had created. They were complex, layered, using the nebula's radiation and electromagnetic interference as weapons themselves. The human ships had scattered throughout the nebula, hiding in the densest clouds. The electromagnetic field generators created zones of disruption. Invisible walls that would confuse Kravak's coordination. It was clever, using environment and technology together. but it still seemed impossible. The Kravax fleet heading toward the Terek sector numbered over 2,000 ships. The humans had 12. Even with perfect tactics, the numbers were overwhelming. Late in the ship's night cycle, Haimi found herself unable to sleep. She went looking for Do-yoon and found him in the tactical center, surrounded by holographic displays showing every sensor reading from the nebula. He looked exhausted. His eyes were red, and the scars on his face seemed more prominent in the harsh light. "You should rest," Haimi said quietly. "Soon," he replied without looking away from the displays. "They'll be here in 6 hours. I need to see it all clearly." Haimi moved closer, studying the displays. "You really believe we can hold them?" "I believe we can hurt them," Do-yoon said. "Hurt them enough that they think twice about what comes next. That is not the same as winning." "No," he agreed. "But sometimes survival is all you can ask for." She thought about the files she had read, the 70 years of human war. "You fought in your civil war," she said. It was not a question. His hands stilled on the controls. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, finally, he nodded. "I was 17 when it started, 32 when it ended. I lost everyone. My parents, my brother, my first wife." Haimi felt her heart skip. "You were married before?" "Her name was Hannah," Do-yoon said softly. "She was a medical officer. The enemy destroyed her hospital ship. 2,000 people died. She was 26. "Ah, I am sorry. So am I." He finally looked at her, and his eyes held that old pain she had glimpsed before. "After she died, I stopped being human for a while. I became something else. A weapon. I was very good at killing Haimi. Too good. When the war ended, I had so much blood on my hands that I could not see my own skin anymore." He turned back to the displays. "That is why I agreed to marry you. Not just for peace between our peoples, but because I wanted to be something other than what I had been. I wanted to be gentle again, to read poetry and drink tea and pretend that the universe could be kind. But the universe is not kind," Haimi said. "No," Do-yoon agreed. "And now the Kravax are coming. And I have to become that weapon again. Just for a while. Just long enough." Before Haimi could respond, the alarm screamed, "Contact!" Minji's voice echoed through the ship. Multiple contacts. Entering the nebula. "It's the Kravax." Do-yoon's entire demeanor shifted. The tired, sad man vanished. What replaced him was someone Haimi had never seen before. Cold, focused, and utterly certain. He moved to the tactical center and brought up the sensor displays. "How many?" he asked. 2,300 ships, Minji reported. "They're spreading out." Probing the nebula. "Wait for it," Do-yoon said calmly. Haimi watched the display as the Kravax fleet pushed deeper into the nebula. The ships were organic, grown rather than built, with hulls that looked like black chitin and weapons that glowed with bioluminescence. They moved in swarms, hundreds of ships flowing together like schools of fish. "They're entering the disruption zones," Minji said. "Activate generators," Do-yoon ordered. Full power. On the display, invisible fields of electromagnetic energy erupted throughout the nebula. The Kravax formations immediately began to break apart, clusters of ships drifting away from their swarms, confused and uncoordinated. "All ships," Do-yoon said into the fleet-wide channel. "Begin attack pattern Delta. Target isolated clusters. Move fast. Hit hard. Then fade back into the nebula." The human ships came alive. They had been hiding in the densest clouds, invisible to sensors. Now they burst out, weapons firing. Haimi had never seen ships move like that. They accelerated impossibly fast, struck with precision, then vanished back into the gas clouds before the Kravax could respond. "Direct hit on Cluster 7, a tactical officer reported. 15 enemy ships destroyed. Cluster 12 breaking apart. They're firing on each other. Cluster 3, attempting to regroup. Recommend targeting. Doyun orchestrated it all with calm commands, his voice never rising, never hesitating. He saw the entire battle at once, every ship, every movement. When clusters tried to coordinate, he disrupted them. When they scattered, he picked them off. When they tried to retreat, he drove them deeper into the killing ground. Hemi watched in horror and fascination. This was not war as the Velkari understood it. This was not honor or glory. This was efficient, ruthless destruction. An hour into the battle, the Kravaks changed tactics. A massive group of ships, nearly 500 strong, pushed toward the Indomitable's position. They had identified the command ship. Boarding craft incoming, Minji announced. They're going to try to take us. Let them board, Doyun said. Sir, you heard me. Pull back our perimeter. Let them think they're winning. Then, close the trap. Hemi felt fear spike through her. Let the enemy board? That was madness. But no one questioned the order. The crew simply moved to execute it. The Kravaks boarding craft latched onto the hull with wet, organic sounds. Breach charges detonated, and suddenly the enemy was inside the ship. Hemi could hear weapon fire in the distance, getting closer. Stay here, Doyun told her. Then he picked up a rifle from a weapons locker and walked toward the sounds of battle. Hemi ignored his order and followed, staying back but keeping him in sight. What she witnessed would haunt her forever. The Kravaks warriors were nightmares made flesh, 8 feet tall, covered in black armor that grew from their bodies, with 4 arms ending in blade-like claws. They moved with terrible speed and strength, tearing through bulkheads and killing anything in their path. Doyun walked toward them alone. He moved through the corridor like death itself, the rifle in his hands firing in controlled bursts. Every shot found its target. Every movement was precise. A Kravaks warrior charged him, and he dropped to one knee, letting it pass over him while putting 3 rounds through its head. Another came from the side, and he rolled, came up firing, never stopped moving. More warriors appeared. 12 of them, cutting off his path. Hemi saw him hesitate, just for a moment, and she realized he was standing in front of a sealed door. Behind that door were crew members, engineers who had no weapons. The Kravaks charged. Doyun dropped the rifle and drew a blade from his belt. It hummed to life, some kind of plasma weapon. And then he moved in a way that Hemi's eyes could barely follow. He became a storm of violence. The blade cut through chitin armor like paper. He ducked under claws that would have torn him apart. He used the narrow corridor to his advantage, forcing the Kravaks to come at him 1 or 2 at a time. When one died, he took its position, using the corpse as a shield. His face was empty of emotion. His movements were mechanical, efficient. This was not a man fighting. This was a machine, designed for killing, operating at peak performance. When the last Kravaks fell, Doyun stood alone in a corridor filled with alien bodies. He was covered in their black blood. His blade still hummed in his hand. He looked up and saw Hemi watching. For just a moment, she saw shame in his eyes. Shame that she had witnessed what he truly was. I told you to stay in the observation deck, he said quietly. I know, Hemi replied. Her voice was shaking. I know what you are now. What humans are. Doyun powered down the blade and walked toward her. Behind him, more crew members appeared, securing the corridor. None of them seemed surprised by what had happened. This was normal for them. We are what war made us, Doyun said. We did not want this. We never wanted this. But when peace failed, we became what we needed to survive. And then, when we finally achieved peace, we swore we would never be this again unless we had no choice. He looked at his hands, still covered in blood. Now we have no choice. Back in the tactical center, the battle reports continued. The Kravaks were retreating from the nebula, their losses catastrophic. Over 800 ships destroyed, The human fleet had lost none. It was impossible. It was terrifying. And Hiemi understood, finally, why humans had hidden what they were. Because if the galaxy knew what they were capable of, everyone would fear them. And fear led to war. And war was exactly what humans were trying to avoid. The Terex sector is secure, Minji reported. The Kravaks are regrouping outside the nebula. How long until they attack again? Doyun asked. Unknown, but they'll be more cautious now. Doyun nodded and turned to Hiemi. You should return to Velkara. It's safer there. No, Hiemi said. I am staying with you. Hiemi, you are my husband, she said firmly. And I will not leave you to face this alone. Whatever you are, whatever you become, I will stand beside you. Doyun looked at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. Thank you, he whispered. That night, Hiemi found Doyun in their shared quarters. He was sitting on the floor, staring at nothing. His hands were shaking. She sat beside him without speaking. After a while, he leaned against her shoulder. Every ship has thousands of lives, he said quietly. I destroyed 800 ships today. That is hundreds of thousands dead. I know the math. I see their faces. They would have killed millions of mine, Hiemi said gently. I know. That is why I did it. But knowing it was necessary does not make it easier to bear. She held him then. This man who was both gentle and terrible. And she understood that humans were not gods of war. They were just people who had been broken by war, and had learned to use those broken pieces as weapons. And now the Kravaks knew it too. The message from Velkara came 3 days after the battle at Terex. Empress Nalara's face appeared on the display, and even through the hologram, Hiemi could see the fear in her mother's eyes. The main Kravaks fleet has arrived, the Empress said. They are at the edge of our system. 3,000 ships, perhaps more. We cannot count them all. Hiemi felt her blood go cold. 3,000. The Terex victory had been against 800, and that had required perfect tactics and the element of surprise. This was 4 times that number. And the Kravaks would not be surprised again. What are your orders, Mother? Hiemi asked. The Council has requested Captain Doyun's presence, the Empress said. Fleet Marshal Tae-young has agreed to share command. We need the human tactics. We need every advantage. Hiemi glanced at Doyun, who was standing beside her. His expression was unreadable, but she saw his jaw tighten. We will come, Hiemi said. The journey back to Velkara felt too short. Hiemi spent the time reviewing defensive plans with Doyun, but her mind kept wandering to the numbers. 3,000 ships. The entire Velkari fleet numbered 800. Even with the humans adding their forces, it seemed impossible. You are thinking about the mathematics, Doyun said, reading her expression. How can we win? The numbers are too great. We cannot win, Doyun said simply. Not in the traditional sense, but we can survive. We can make them pay such a terrible price that they decide we are not worth consuming. And if they do not care about the price, Doyun was quiet for a moment. Then we make sure the price includes us, taking them with us. When they arrived at Velkara, the system was transformed. Every orbital platform was active, bristling with weapons. The fleet was arranged in defensive shells around the homeworld, layer upon layer of ships ready to sacrifice themselves. And in the middle of it all, the human fleet had arrived in force. Not 12 ships this time. 200. Hiemi stared at the display in shock. Where did they all come from? They were always there, Doyun said quietly. Waiting. Watching. We learned during the Civil War that you must always keep your true strength hidden until the moment you need it. The human ships were larger than she expected. The flagship, the TNS Ragnarok, was massive, twice the size of the Valkyrie dreadnoughts. Its hull was covered in weapons that looked nothing like standard galactic technology. Strange, brutal designs that seemed built for one purpose: destruction. That is Admiral Junho's ship, Doyun said. He was my commanding officer during the Civil War. There is no one I trust more. The War Council met aboard the Ragnarok, neutral ground between the two fleets. When Hyemi entered the council chamber, she was struck by the difference in atmosphere. The Valkyrie officers looked frightened, desperate. The human officers looked calm, almost cold. They had seen this before. They knew what was coming. Admiral Junho was an older man with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much. He greeted Do-yoon with a brief embrace, then turned to address the assembled leaders. The Kravaks will attack within 12 hours, Junho said without preamble. They are coordinating their fleet, preparing for a full assault. They have learned from the Terex battle, and will not be caught off guard again. What are our chances? Fleet Marshal Tae-young asked. With conventional tactics? None. Junho manipulated the holographic display, showing the defensive formations. We are outnumbered 4-1. Even if every shot destroys an enemy ship, we will be overwhelmed. Then what do you propose? The Empress asked. Junho looked at Do-yoon. We propose that humanity does what it does best. We become the monsters you need us to be. Monsters you need us to be. One quote. 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 The human fleet's battle plan was brutal in its simplicity. They would not try to hold a defensive line. Instead, they would attack, drive straight into the heart of the Kravaks formation, and destroy everything within reach. The Valkyrie fleet would provide support and protect the homeworld, but the humans would be the spear thrust into the enemy's chest. This is suicide, Tae-young said. Yes, Junho agreed. But it will work. The Kravaks expect us to defend. They expect fear. They do not expect prey to bare its fangs. Hyemi watched as Do-yoon stepped forward to the display. The Kravaks use biological technology, he said. Their ships are grown, not built. They communicate through bioelectromagnetic signals. We have studied them for 3 days, analyzed their patterns. We know where their command vessels are. He highlighted several ships in the display, larger than the others, pulsing with different energy signatures. These are the queens. Kill them, and their fleet loses coordination. The swarms become individuals, confused and vulnerable. You are asking us to send our fleet on a suicide mission for a chance, an admiral said. I am asking you to let us send our fleet, Do-yoon corrected. We have the weapons. We have the experience. And we have already died once. We are not afraid of doing it again, if it means your people survive. The chamber was silent. Hyemi looked around at the faces of the Valkyrie leaders and saw the shame there. The humans were offering to die for them. Strangers who had been enemies just months ago were now willing to sacrifice everything. No, Hyemi said suddenly. All eyes turned to her. You will not die alone. The Valkyrie will fight beside you. We will share this burden. Her mother nodded slowly. My daughter speaks wisdom. We will coordinate our forces. If this is to be our last stand, we will make it one the galaxy remembers. The next hours passed in frantic preparation. Ships were armed with every weapon available. Crews said goodbye to families. Evacuation shuttles continued moving civilians to the underground shelters. Everyone knew what was coming. Everyone understood that most of them would not survive. Hyemi found Do-yoon on the observation deck of the Ragnarok, staring out at the assembled fleet. She moved beside him quietly. Are you afraid? She asked. Terrified, he admitted. I have been in many battles, Hyemi. I have seen cities burn and ships die. But this is different. This is everything. If we fail, your people cease to exist. If we fail, your people will continue. You could leave, take your fleet, and go. The Kravaks are not after humanity. Do-yoon turned to look at her. We could, he agreed. But we will not. Because that is not who we are. We are not the gentle traders the galaxy thinks we are. But we are also not monsters. We are people who understand that sometimes peace requires fighting for it. He took her hand in his. I married you for peace. But I will fight for you because I have come to care for you. Not as a political necessity, but as my wife. Wife. Hammy felt warmth spread through her chest. And I care for you, she said. Both the man who reads poetry and the warrior who protects us. You are not two different people. You are one person who carries both within him. I hope that person is enough, Doyun whispered. The Kravax attack began exactly when Admiral Junho predicted. The enemy fleet entered the system in a massive wave, blotting out the stars. 3,000 ships, maybe more, all moving with terrible purpose toward Velkara. Hammy stood on the bridge of the Indomitable beside Doyun. Around them, the crew worked with silent efficiency. Everyone knew their role. Everyone understood the stakes. All ships, Doyun said into the fleet-wide channel. His voice was calm, almost gentle. Today we fight, not for glory, not for conquest. We fight so that others may live in peace. That is the only victory that matters. That is the only thing worth dying for. He paused, then added, we offered them peace. They chose extinction. Let us oblige them. The human fleet surged forward. 200 ships, accelerating to attack speed, driving straight into the enemy formation, like a blade. The Kravax seemed confused by the tactic, their swarms shifting, trying to adjust. Then the humans opened fire. Hammy had thought she understood human weapons after the Terex battle. She had been wrong. What she saw now was beyond anything she had imagined. Railguns fired projectiles at relativistic speeds, punching through multiple ships at once. Missile swarms filled space with nuclear fire, and stranger weapons. Things she could not identify, that seemed to tear reality itself. Neutron charges deployed. A tactical officer reported. Direct hits on clusters 12 through 18. Hiemi watched on the display as entire sections of the Kravax fleet simply died. No explosions, no fire. The ships went dark, their biological systems killed by radiation that left the hulls intact but everyone inside dead. This is what we built during the Civil War, Doyun said quietly, seeing her expression. Weapons designed not to destroy ships, but to kill everyone aboard. We were very good at killing each other. The battle became chaos. The Kravax pressed forward, overwhelming the human fleet with sheer numbers. Ships died on both sides. Brilliant flashes of light marking each death. The Velkari fleet provided support, their weapons adding to the destruction. But the humans bore the brunt of the assault. Queen vessel identified, Minji announced. Sector 7, coordinates marked. All ships, focus fire, Doyun ordered. Bring that queen down. The human fleet coordinated instantly. Dozens of ships turning their weapons on a single target. The queen vessel was massive, pulsing with bioluminescence, and it fought back with weapons that seemed to grow from its hull. But the humans did not relent. They poured fire into it until the great ship broke apart, spilling biological matter into the void. Immediately, a section of the Kravax fleet went silent, drifting without coordination. Second queen vessel located, Junho's voice came over the channel. I am moving to engage. Admiral, you are too deep in their formation, Doyun said. You will be cut off. I know, Junho replied. His voice was calm, almost cheerful. But someone has to get close enough. The Ragnarok can take the punishment. Hammy watched in horror as the massive flagship drove deeper into the Kravax swarm. Enemy ships surrounded it, attacking from all sides. The Ragnarok's shields flared with each hit. Bright and desperate. But Junho kept going, closer and closer to the second queen. Doyun, the admiral said, remember what I taught you. Peace is worth any price. But sometimes, the price is everything. Junho. Tell my husband I am coming home, Junho said. Tell Earth the war is over. The Ragnarok's reactors went critical. For just a moment, A new star was born in the Velcara system. Bright and terrible. The explosion consumed the Admiral's ship, the Queen vessel, and over 500 Kravax ships. The blast wave rippled across the battlefield, and when it cleared, a massive section of the enemy fleet was simply gone. Hyemi looked at Do-yoon. Tears were running down his face, but his voice remained steady. "All ships," he said. "The Admiral gave us an opening. Push forward. Make his sacrifice mean something." The battle raged for 6 more hours. The humans fought with a desperation that seemed to defy physics. They took damage that should have destroyed them and kept fighting. They coordinated attacks that no other species could match. They died by the dozens, but they never stopped. And slowly, impossibly, the Kravax began to break. With 2 queens dead, their coordination was shattered. The swarms fractured into individual groups, each fighting independently. The humans and Velkari concentrated their fire, destroying clusters one by one. Finally, as the system's sun began to rise over Velkara's eastern horizon, the Kravax fleet retreated. They jumped to slipspace and fled, leaving behind the wreckage of 2,000 ships. The battle was over. They had won, but the cost was terrible. The silence after battle was always the worst part. Hyemi had learned this over the past hours. Watching Do-yoon work through the casualty reports, his face remained calm. But she could see the way his hands shook slightly as he marked each lost ship. Each name added to the list of the dead. 73 human ships destroyed, over 40,000 dead. The Velkari had lost 112 ships, 60,000 lives. And one admiral who had chosen to become a star rather than watch the war continue. "We should have done more," Do-yoon said quietly. "I should have seen a better way." "Chloe, you saved millions," Hyemi replied, placing one of her hands over his. "My people would have been extinct without you. But 40,000 would still be alive without me leading them into battle. They followed you because they trusted you," Hyemi said, "because you understood what needed to be done. That is not the same as killing them." Do-yoon did not answer. He simply returned to his reports, marking names with the care of someone who refused to forget a single one. The Galactic Council called for a formal session 3 days later. The galaxy had watched the Kravax advance with growing terror, expecting another extinction. Instead, they had witnessed something impossible. The Kravax had been stopped. Hyemi stood before the council with her mother on one side and Do-yoon on the other. Fleet Marshal Taehyung was there too, his armor scorched from battle, his expression solemn. "The Kravax attacked with 3,000 ships," the Empress told the assembled representatives. "They destroyed our outer colonies and killed millions. They seemed unstoppable." She gestured to Do-yoon. "And then, the humans fought. Not for territory. Not for glory. They fought because we asked them to. Because they understood that peace sometimes requires those who know war to stand between the innocent and the darkness." The council chamber was silent. Every eye was on the humans in attendance. The small delegation looked uncomfortable with the attention. Uncomfortable with the recognition of what they were capable of. "We have learned something important," the Empress continued. "Humanity hides its strength because it knows that strength invites conflict. They prefer trade and diplomacy because they understand the cost of war better than any species alive. But when threatened, when asked to protect others, they become something the galaxy has never seen." She turned to face Do-yoon directly. "Captain Do-yoon, on behalf of the Velkari Empire, and all the species who would have fallen next to the Kravax, I offer you our deepest gratitude. You and your people are true guardians." Do-yoon stepped forward to the speaking platform. He looked tired, older than his years, but his voice was clear. "The galaxy calls us guardians," he said. "But we are not. We are simply people who remember what it means to lose everything. Humanity fought a civil war that killed 2 billion of our own kind. We built weapons that could destroy worlds. We became monsters to each other." He paused, looking around at the assembled representatives. "When that war finally ended, we made a choice. We would hide what we were. We would be known for peace, not war, because we understood that if the galaxy knew what we were capable of, they would fear us. And fear leads to conflict. And conflict leads to more war. But the Kravaks forced your hand, the council speaker said. Yes, Do-yoon agreed. And we did what we had to do. But understand this. We are not proud of what we did. We are not proud of the weapons we built or the deaths we caused. Every ship we destroyed carried thousands of lives. We know this. We carry this weight. He looked at Hyemi, and she saw the pain in his eyes. War is not glorious. It is not noble. It is horror and suffering and loss. We fought, not because we wanted to, but because someone had to. That is the difference between a warrior and a guardian. Warriors seek glory. Guardians seek peace, and will do terrible things to protect it. The council was quiet for a long moment. Then, slowly, representatives from dozens of species began to strike their chest plates, click their mandibles, pulse with light. The traditional signs of respect. The council recognizes the sacrifice of humanity and the Velkari Empire, the speaker said. Let this alliance be formalized. Let it be known that those who attack peaceful species will face guardians who remember the cost of peace. The formal treaty was signed that day. The Velkari and humans would share technology, trade freely, and maintain a joint defense force. Other species requested to join the alliance, seeking protection from threats like the Kravaks. But Hyemi barely paid attention to the politics. She was watching Do-yoon, seeing how he stood apart from the celebrations, how his mind was clearly elsewhere. That night, she found him alone in the memorial gardens on Velkara. The gardens had been created in the days after the battle, a place to remember the fallen. Each ship lost had a stone marker, and families had begun placing personal items at the bases. Photographs, favorite foods, letters never sent. Do-yoon was placing something at one of the human markers. As Hyemi approached, she saw it was a small wooden box, carved with intricate patterns. What is that? It belonged to Junho, Do-yoon said. His husband gave it to me before the battle. He said if anything happened, I should plant something in it. Something that would grow. He opened the box, showing her the seeds inside. Oak tree seeds. From Earth. Junho loved oak trees. He said they were symbols of strength and endurance. Together, they planted the seeds in the memorial garden. Do-yoon worked slowly, carefully, treating the soil with reverence. When the seeds were buried, he sat back and stared at the freshly turned earth. I resigned my commission today, he said. I told them I am done fighting. Whatever they need, they can ask someone else. What will you do? Hyemi asked. I thought I might help build these gardens, Do-yoon said. Plant trees for every ship lost. Human, Velkari, even Kravaks. All of them deserve to be remembered. That will take years. Good. I have time. And I need something to do that creates life, instead of taking it. Hyemi sat beside him, her forearms wrapping around herself against the cool night air. I have news, she said. I was going to wait, but this seems like the right moment. Do-yoon looked at her curiously. I am pregnant, Hyemi said. The doctors confirmed it yesterday. Our child will be born in 6 months. For the first time since the battle, Do-yoon smiled. It was small and fragile, but it was real. A child, he whispered. Life, in the middle of all this death. Yes, Hyemi said. And they will grow up in these gardens. They will play among the trees and know what was sacrificed so they could live in peace. Do-yoon reached out and took her hand. Then, we will make sure the gardens are beautiful. So our child knows that peace is worth any price, but war should never be forgotten. The weeks turned to months. The memorial gardens grew as more families came to plant remembrances. Trees began to sprout from the soil. Tiny green shoots reaching toward the sun. Do-yoon worked in the gardens every day, teaching volunteers how to care for the growing plants, sharing stories of those who had died. He never spoke of the battles with pride. He spoke of them with sorrow, making sure every listener understood the cost. Children would come with their parents, and Doyun would tell them about the people who had sacrificed everything. War is not a story, he would say. It is not adventure. It is people dying so others can live. Never forget that. Never let anyone convince you that war is glorious. Haimi watched him during these lessons and felt her heart swell with love. This was the man she had married. Not the warrior or the diplomat, but both of them together. Someone who understood violence and chose gentleness. Someone who could kill and chose to create. When their daughter was born, they named her Hana, after Doyun's first wife. It felt right, honoring the woman who had died in war while celebrating the child born from peace. Hana was beautiful. She had her mother's golden eyes and her father's dark hair. She had 2 arms like her father and violet-tinted skin like her mother. She was a bridge between 2 species, proof that different people could create something wonderful together. The Kravaks never returned to Velkari space. Reports came from other sectors of the galaxy that the surviving fleet had scattered, breaking into smaller groups that avoided contact with other species. The Kravaks had learned that not all prey were defenseless. Some had guardians who remembered how to bare their fangs. The human fleet remained in the alliance, but they returned to their preferred role: trade and diplomacy. The weapons that had destroyed the Kravaks were put into storage. The ships were retrofitted for peaceful purposes. Humanity once again became known for negotiation and patience. But the galaxy remembered what they had seen. They remembered the humans driving into the heart of an enemy fleet. They remembered Admiral Junho's sacrifice. They remembered that peaceful people could become terrible when protecting those they cared about. 5 years after the battle, Haimi stood in the memorial gardens with Doyun and Hana. The trees had grown tall now, their branches spreading wide. Oak trees from Earth grew beside Velkari bloom trees, human apple trees near Trill nectar plants. The garden was a mix of species, all growing together. Hana ran through the paths, laughing as she chased butterflies. She was too young to understand what the memorial stones meant, but old enough to appreciate the beauty of the place. She will ask questions soon, Hiemi said, watching their daughter play. I know, Doyun replied, and I will tell her the truth. I will tell her about the people who died, about the choices we made, about the cost of peace. Will you tell her you were a hero? Doyun shook his head. No. Heroes are for stories. I will tell her I was a man who did terrible things because someone had to. That I carry the weight of those choices every day. That I would do it again to protect her, but I wish I had never had to do it at all. He knelt down and placed his hand on one of the memorial stones. I will tell her that these stones represent real people. People with families and dreams. People who laughed and loved and died too young. And that we honor them not by glorifying war, but by cherishing the peace they bought with their lives. Hana ran up to them, holding a flower she had picked. Papa, look, it is pretty. Doyun took the flower and smiled at his daughter. Why are there so many stones? Hana asked, looking around at the memorial markers. Because these stones remember people who were very brave, Doyun said carefully. They did difficult things so you could play in this garden. Were you brave too, Papa? Doyun glanced at Hayemi, then back at his daughter. I tried to be, he said. But real bravery is not about fighting. It is about protecting the people you love. It is about choosing kindness when anger would be easier. That is what I want you to learn, Hana. Be brave enough to be kind. Hana nodded seriously, as if she understood, then ran off to chase more butterflies. She has your eyes, Doyun said to Haimi. She sees beauty in everything. And she has your heart, Haimi replied. She will grow up knowing that strength means protecting others, not hurting them. Years continued to pass. The gardens grew larger, spreading across what had once been a military staging ground. More species joined the alliance, seeking the protection of those who understood war well enough to avoid it. The galaxy entered a period of relative peace, with the memory of the Kravax War serving as a reminder of what could happen when peaceful species were forced to fight. Doyun remained in the gardens, teaching new generations about the cost of war. Former soldiers from the battle would visit, finding peace among the trees they had planted for their fallen friends. The gardens became a sacred place, somewhere people came to remember and to heal. On the 20th anniversary of the battle, a great gathering was held in the gardens. Survivors from both the human and Velkari fleets attended, along with representatives from the dozens of species in the Alliance. The gardens were filled with thousands of people, all come to remember. Hiemi gave a speech, standing beneath one of the oak trees that had grown from Junho's seeds. The tree was massive now, its branches spreading wide enough to shade hundreds. 20 years ago, we faced extinction, she said. We faced an enemy that seemed unstoppable, and we survived, because people chose to stand between us and the darkness. They chose to sacrifice themselves so we could live. She looked out at the assembled crowd. We call them guardians. We call them heroes. But they were simply people who understood that peace is worth any price, and that sometimes that price is everything. My husband taught me something important, Hami continued. War is not glorious. It is not noble. It is horror and suffering and the breaking of everything good. We honor those who died not by celebrating war, but by working every day to ensure their sacrifice was not in vain. She gestured to the gardens around them. These trees grow from soil watered with tears. These flowers bloom where ships once burned. This is what we make from war: beauty and remembrance, and a promise to do better. And next on. Wanan. So today, we remember. We remember the names. We remember the faces. We remember what they gave up, so we could stand here, in peace. And we promise to teach our children that peace is not the absence of conflict. It is the choice to value life over victory, to protect rather than conquer, to build rather than destroy. That is the legacy of the Guardians. That is what we honor here. The crowd was silent for a moment. Then began the traditional signs of respect. But this time, it was different. People began to plant new seeds in the garden, each one a promise to remember, to honor, to protect the peace that had been bought with so much blood. Doyun stood beside Hiemi, his arm around Hana, who was now 20 and looked more like her father every year. He said nothing, but she could see tears on his face. Are you all right? Hiemi asked quietly. I am thinking about Junho, Doyun said. About how he would laugh to see an oak tree this large. He always said oak trees were stubborn. They grew even when everything tried to stop them. Like you, Himi said. Like all of us, Doyun corrected. We all grow, despite the darkness. We all reach toward the light. That evening, as the gathering ended and people began to leave, Doyun walked through the gardens one more time. He touched each memorial stone, remembering faces, remembering names. When he reached Junho's oak tree, he sat down beneath its branches and looked up at the leaves filtering the fading sunlight. We did it, old friend, he whispered. We bought them peace. It cost everything, but it was worth it. The wind rustled through the leaves, and for just a moment, Doyun could almost imagine it was Junho's laughter. Hami found him there later, sitting peacefully beneath the tree. She sat beside him and took his hand. What are you thinking about? She asked. I am thinking about how I married you for peace, Doyun said, and how I never expected to find love in a political arrangement. But here we are, 20 years later, and I cannot imagine my life without you. And I cannot imagine mine without you, Hiemi replied. Both the warrior and the gardener. Both the man who fights and the man who plants trees. You are all of these things, and I love all of them. They sat together in silence, watching their daughter play among the trees with her friends. Children of humans, and Valkyrie, growing up together, learning each other's languages and customs. They did not see differences. They saw only friends. This is what we fought for, Doyun said. Not territory. Not victory. This. Children playing in gardens where battles once raged. Different species building friendships instead of walls. You achieved what you wanted, Hemi said. You became something other than a weapon. You became a teacher. A gardener. A father. I became what I needed to be, Doyun corrected gently. Just like during the war. The difference is that now, what the galaxy needs is not someone who knows how to destroy, but someone who remembers why we fight to protect life. As the sun set over Velkara, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold, the gardens filled with the sounds of life. Birds singing, children laughing, wind rustling through leaves, the sounds of peace, and beneath an oak tree planted in memory of a man who had become a star to save millions. A couple who had married for politics and found love sat together, holding hands, watching their daughter play. Peace had been worth the price. But the price would never be forgotten, because these gardens would stand for generations, reminding everyone who walked through them that peace is not free. It is built with sacrifice and watered with tears and tended with care by those who remember what it costs to lose it. And in the center of it all, the guardians who had fought for that peace continued to plant trees, one by one, until the entire world was covered in gardens.